It's bright and early on Monday, July 13th. I just found a tweet. I was looking for Farley Media from a logged out Twitter and found a tweet from a guy called Econ Brookfist. And it had a screenshot saying, Farley and Eng are continue doing this to me. And basically, well, do you want to explain what we're doing?
Well, I haven't. I'm just waking up, so I haven't caught up to date to the newest flux and flooding of Econ Breakfast's morning commentary about both of us.
Just for the record, disclaimer: I do not support arson. Just this arsonist stalker.
I'm looking at their page right now, and it seems to be one of their fixations is, first of all, collecting non-lethal munitions, stalking us relentlessly, and now it's this
burning
fire.
Down the city.
Yeah. He seems to be supporting the fiery actions last night.
You know what they said is that the smoke was affecting the prisoners.
Smoke?
Yeah, so the police are now talking about the unhealthy air that the prisoners and the employees of the Justice Center are being forced to smell.
Oh, I don't think you know what white balance is, Econ.
He needs some help.
He needs photography. Somebody should pay for a photography classes for him. So, go fund a new hobby for do a GoFundMe for Econ so he stops. At this point, he's kind of like just a very troubled stepchild or something. Just someone who hates the parental archetype, the figures that maybe my moral stance that I assert to these rioters is something that clashes with him on a more psychological level. I don't think he grew up with a father.
Yeah.
He's admitted to having, well, or at least he hasn't mentioned his father not once in his thousands upon thousands of tweets, but he's mentioned his abusive mother, and what he's doing is, if you really psychologically probe, why is he stalking us specifically and cyberbullying us on Twitter relentlessly every day? Is that because it fuels or it feeds his insatiable need to have parental figures or people with higher values or understanding of he just wants to learn. I think he's
well,
hungry
you've
for
met
growth.
him. I've never met him. So, disclaimer: this person I've never met tweets about me on a daily basis, trying to associate me with arson. But I was a peaceful city council goer. I was a public face and a public name. I wasn't hiding behind a mask or doing criminal things.
Oh, look, he's got acetaminophen here. What's happening? Maybe he has some
injuries, probably.
Shaky hands. So he thinks that the acetaminophen is going to help his essential tremor. But as he's holding the bottle, it's shaking.
Yeah, we have a tremor in our family, and we have Parkinson's, and my tremor is worse on my left hand. It almost makes it impossible. It's amazing I even do YouTubes, because it's actually very hard to get my tremor not. But my right hand is much more steady than my left.
I could say to Econ that now that's not that big of a deal. He's filming these action-packed events that are basically like you're panning around and moving a lot anyway because everything is just shuffling around. And the video stabilization in his iPhone 11 that was probably sugar daddied by Robert Evans, it does a good enough job. You can't even tell that he has a tremendous shake.
The stabilization. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, the built-in iPhone image stabilization.
Yeah, so...
He seems to be propping it up on a tripod. Maybe that would benefit him out there in the protests even more, is bringing a tripod so he doesn't have to hold it and shake it all around.
I don't look at it as account very much more, but we did glance across it, and I did stumble across it a few days ago when I was logged out, which is a thing. There's, if you're logged out, there's no way to block harassment.
Yeah, and we're just searching Portland protests and
he's basically associating my name with a protest I have nothing to do with. I helped clean up a little bit yesterday. We went down to see the damage at the courthouse.
That was nice. It was nice to because when we started cleaning up, it inspired others in the group of protesters to then take their own bag and clean clean up the rest of the little mess that they've left. So just showing a presence at, not participating in the protest, but maybe, like I said, the parental archetype, the figure head of what is right. Like, it's not okay to burn things down. It's not okay to leave trash all over the ground. So cleaning it up was more of a, I guess you could call it kind of a protest to their protest, is how I would say it.
Yeah, gosh.
You may have not viewed it that way, but...
Well, yeah, a little bit. It's sort of, it's like messy kids. I mean...
Clean up your room, Antifa
And
kids.
sometimes the parents have to give a jump start to the kids.
And a lot of these kids are like 14, 15. They're still living with their parents who probably give them no structure. They don't have to clean up their house, their rooms at their parents' house.
Well, whatever, the thing that really just disturbed me a moment ago was that I called out Econ Breakfast for home stalking you with that friend of the rapist, Hart Noecker, Munjin Cakes.
Mm-hmm.
So Munjin Cakes was a longtime internet troll.
He's also a black sock puppet quite frequently. He's
right. He pretends to be black on Twitter to...
he's misracialized himself for...
Misracialized. Well, yeah. It's kind of like that, the Dijal, that woman who had like an identity complex.
And he fooled you for quite some time.
Oh yeah, I became sort of friends, but like I would talk to this person based on his fake black identity of a really handsome black man. But I mean, that's what we have with these like, God, oh my God.
And that's quite an odd collaboration.
This man came to your house. He was outside your window. Like, he's Juliet and you're Romeo. Come out of your window. I'm outside your house.
Which I almost,
Oh.
I wonder how much of a victim is Econ in the organizing.
But he's saying I'm sexually harassing him because I've said no more home stalking a guy you apparently have a crush on. And I'm calling him out for his abuse, as well as talking about your genitals constantly online.
And he had already had, I assume, the crush before he came to my house. But it's like the creep black sock puppeter, Munjin Cakes, had the idea to express his feelings for me by saying, we should go to Farley's tonight and play a projection and play Disney.
And he had
Princess
put beautiful like posters around of that like kind of sexy hunky picture of you covered in silly string.
It was like a collage of Farley photos and back then they were few and far between. I got one from Mark Graves, who's I would consider more of a pornographer, but he works for Oregonian.
Right, so you were being exploited because you'd shown up with a camera at these mysterious protests, and then you get framed by these wannabe radicals who've decided you make a good person to demonize, but then also kind of fetishize, I guess, is Rosie's word. Rosie.
And if you really look at my body of work, all I'm doing is I'm going out to protests and events, quietly filming, going back home, putting it in iMovie or Final Cut Pro, and putting a title on it on Twitter, and that's what they hate me for. It's just my free speech.
Right, they don't like journalism because they want either propagandist of their empire or nothing. So they don't actually support journalism or free speech. And like, yeah, oh my gosh. So I'm definitely not sexually harassing Econ Breakfast by asking him not to sexually harass or homestock you.
No, I think that's a fair request.
And I put it in writing to the police, don't harass me. So months later, as he continues to obsess on me, but I'm feeling like there may be a trend that the protest and arsonism has taken his attention span away from harassing me nonstop. I don't know if that's provable.
Well, let's see. He hasn't talked about you in 12 hours.
Oh, my God.
16 hours. I'm scrolling down his timeline. In fact, usually it's all day, every day. But
right.
And if he's gone a full... he talked about you again?
No, that's good, because that's yesterday's when he was on the canisters. He's doing like a taxonomy of tear gas.
Wow. I don't think he's talked about you or me for a full...
24 hours.
24 hours. That's good.
That's good, yeah.
So this protest, these fires have really gotten Econ distracted from us.
Right, which I hoped...
That's all he needed was a hobby, really. I mean, something to do in this city. He was bored. Maybe he was stalking us
out of boredom.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's got a purpose now. Well, that's good. That's good news.
Well, now he's stalking villain Phoenix, who was attacked yesterday and chased from a peaceful patriot protest in downtown. They had to actually
His dominant hand
seek
is in
refuge.
pain. Let's see what his injury is. My dominant hand is in searing pain. My fault for confiscating for the burn.
That's another one of his weird protest hobbies, is not only collecting images of fire and posting them on Twitter, but he also likes to collect these little canisters of the deployed, the non-lethal cans that were deployed.
Shot in the back with what I assume was a pepper spray projectile. We saw this yesterday. Wow, there's pictures of the fire. So the fire was oh God.
I think the fire is more of like a symbolism, an expression of his inner rage that he's kind of collaging onto his Twitter and weaving through his trying to figure out the world around him.
It's kind of fortunate that he's too young to understand the implications of attacking a federal facility, that he could wind up in prison or facilitating or accessorizing.
He doesn't even go out there with a helmet. That could have been him with it.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
With his head bloodied up.
You don't want that to
canister.
happen to anyone. Nobody wants anyone to suffer that type of head injury.
Which is why I think that some of these kids don't go out there with headgear, with any protection.
Yeah,
I think
they're
that
naive.
they could have a death wish.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. It's definitely like a suicidal protest.
It's like, okay, I become a martyr at this protest, the feds shoot me dead or whatever happens, and now they get to have a mural at Pioneer Square after the looting occurs, after this damage to the city, and you become legicized.
Legicized, what a good word. Yeah, that's great. Wow, you're so sharp for early in the morning. I just popped this video with like, here's your coffee. Okay, here we're rolling. Thank you, Brandon. Should we keep going or should we like make a million? That's 11 minutes. Is there anything else about the econ breakfast situation?
It was. I'm trying to find the last time that he spoke of us.
Oh yeah.
And he's doing quite well. Like this might be the longest record. Okay, here we go. July 10th.
July 10th.
Which is just 3 days ago. But that's good.
That's so really long. Good. Yeah, way to go, econ breakfast. Way to go.
And his last tweet about us is talking about almost as if I've kept tweeting about this crap, not because I'm quote obsessed with the individuals involved. Ones I've made very clear I want to leave me alone, but with documenting what's happened because I'm not in the wrong here, and they've massively negatively impacted my life. It's about econ. He runs the show. He's the one who's negatively impacted, not us.
He doesn't, but his inability to have compassion is an autism spectrum. It's an empathy problem. He doesn't understand that Google bombing my name every single day with his Twitter storm, implying that I'm associated with his terrorism and demolishing of the city.
He's trying to ruin your name, your reputation.
Yeah, and he's trying to play innocent, like he's too naive to understand that he's doing that.
I mean, this person has had his Twitter account since February 2019. You've had your Twitter account for many years. You've had you're sprawled out across the internet with all of these breaking stories, all of these interviews, everything that you've done, and he wants to put tamper.
Right, but it's kind of like he's on my coattails too, because I have been like blogging about many of the issues that we have shared concerns with, like racism, police brutality, even disability rights, even.
Well, in a way, he's kind of fanboying you too.
I know, and it's so flattering, and I just don't want it to go to my head too much because I appreciate the attention. But one of my biggest points that is bugging me the most is that his role as this sort of patriarchal, grandiose character that decides what the person who's perceived to be a woman is allowed to do with her life is so utterly sexist and condescending, and it's what I've been against for years and years, since I was like 10 years old and aware of sexism. And it's very disturbing to have a complete stranger who's completely misogynist and sexist try to step into my life and tell me that because my political spectrum is this way, I am not allowed to talk to somebody with a political spectrum another way. And that patriarchal control falls along the lines of forced marriage, honor-based violence, where women are killed, women are stigmatized, women are humiliated for their choices in their personal life. And that like I've been campaigning against that type of violence. Women should not be killed, executed, humiliated, tarred and feathered for their choices in their personal life or people perceived to be women. And I see his legacy of deep misogyny to be highly fascistic. And he doesn't have any self-analysis. And it's so, he's very blind to his own misogyny. And it's very painful to me to see that.
Oh.
Yeah. But I don't know how I can get through to him. I keep trying to write it down, and he wants to keep silencing me. And that silencing of me is what all these other tech bros in the riot protest are doing.
And didn't he just did a copyright complaint on
he wants
you
to silence
speaking in front of a camera.
He doesn't want me to be a victim. It's like when my rapist cut the cord so I could not have any access to debrief the police after he raped and strangled me. It's this typical abuser mentality of we will not let the victim speak. And he doesn't want me to speak about his predation on you, the trauma that inflicted on you.
And they'll try to distort the narrative as, oh, now they're the victim.
Yeah, he's the victim, yeah.
Which is not the case. If you're a victim, I don't think you'd be cheerfully discussing our exploits daily like it's a gossip column. No, you're exploiting us.
Why?
Plain and simple. And even just a couple days ago, he's posting pictures of us like together, and his first two words, "I hate," and we're in a moment of happiness.
Right.
His happiness, or our happiness, is something that he hates.
And he's indexing it to Andy No. I wonder if he's doing that for search indexing, because Andy No has quite a large following, and maybe he's hoping he can just start associating us with jumping, because he likes to piggyback names. So maybe.
He used to obsess over Jean LaDon, an older woman. He's 60.
That's kind of creepy.
And would just relentlessly target her on Twitter. In fact, I think
he drove her off Twitter on purpose, just like he wants to drive you off Twitter. He stated that he wants to.
Yeah.
He wants your account expunged.
He thinks Twitter is his domain because it's an open platform. You can say whatever you want on Twitter and interact with all sorts of people. He doesn't want that. He's a Stalinist. Berlin
Stalinist,
Wall.
he is. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's close these
total
people
fascist dictator control type. Napoleon complex.
Like a tribalist, I only want people with my views, my thoughts, my sentiments in this platform.
He wants his sycophants. He wants to have his ass kissed, basically. And so I was very nice to him. I'm not impolite.
No, he's crossed the line many times, and we've just tried to reach out, not even reach out, but understand the mentality going through this psychopath, really, who's been relentlessly stalking us for months and months, making it sexual, showing up to my place.
Well, and once I made the rapist connection with Hartnett Ecker, I was like, wow, because the Hartnett Ecker thing came up to me because I was aware of this huge campaign to call out a sexual predator in the activist community. Then I linked the fact that Econ Breakfast's ally, Munching Cakes, his co-stalker of your house, was deeply embedded and apologetic and still affiliating with Hartnett Ecker long after he had been accused of like forcible sodomy, date rape, drugs, and rape and strangulation of numerous people. And I
don't think Ted Wheeler was his friends too on Facebook.
Well, Ted Wheeler did not denounce Hart. I don't know if he unfollowed, but Ted Wheeler was following him at a time when I ask 5 questions, Ted Wheeler blocks me. Just like I make 2 comments, Alan Kessler blocks me. I make 2 questions to Donovan Farley, he blocks me. And this like masculinity so fragile cannot handle a person they perceive to be a woman having a thought, or like, and it's like this absolute shutdown. It's patriarchy, and it's so offensive when it happens in Egypt. Why is it not offensive if it happens in Portland? But my theory is that the Eurocentric white American male cannot recognize their own sexism, especially in the Pacific Northwest. Mm-hmm. And then like Donovan Farley is promoting Gregory McKelvey as this poster boy of Antifaism without any analysis of how the woman who was strangled by him feels about the fact that her strangler is now being glorified in Playboy magazine in some kind of sexualized commodification of Antifaism, which, I mean, at least he's sleazy. That's all I can say for Donovan Farley. Like, and it does look like he might be a good music journalist. Maybe I think he's pretty misguided and disturbed to be involved with this like extreme radical escalation in Portland. It's pretty dangerous, and I hope he gets out of it. And I hope he doesn't get fall back from any of the death threats that you've gotten. And that was my point of contact. I was like, hey, you just happen to have the same last name. You're aware that there's a death threat campaign that Econ Breakfast is fueling fire to. He's connected with militants who've mimicked kicking you in the head. Remember that Pacific Northwest Youth Front or whatever?
That's right.
Kicking you in the head. Let's go kick Farley in the head.
Kick Farley, kill Farley. It's a common theme. They want to see violence inflicted on me. Recently, Lilith Sinclair says that she wants to see a video of a Richard Spencer-like attack on me where somebody just punches me out of nowhere.
And you're a father of black kids, one of whom is deceased too.
They want to associate me with their perceived Nazi. I'm just a journalist with a comical stance sometimes in my
well,
titles.
I feel like I can say this as a person who grew up in the black neighborhood of Nashville, Tennessee. You are more enculturated to black culture, black diversity, black soul, black hip hop, black music, black rap, in a way that I'm like, you're one of the most open-minded, tolerant. You've dated numerous black women. Like, what's going on with you being demonized and excluded from these white kids pretending that they represent black lives?
Because I live for Black Lives Matter. They try to force the movement of which they've hijacked onto people and claim it as their own. It's like the 1950s when white people started stealing rock music.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
They're just trying to piggyback off the culture and because they realize
it's cultural appropriation.
Definitely.
Yeah, and so they don't actually want real black allies.
And as someone who is an ally, who's I would say even almost deeply embedded within black culture in some regards, having lived with a black family before, and I'm offended. And some black leaders have called them out too, calling them a white fringe factor, who are basically going through black neighborhoods, looting, destroying, burning down black-owned businesses in Portland, and they don't know the history.
They burned down the weave shop. That's what that lovely lady said. They burned down the hair shop, and the black woman trying to intervene, like, stop burning down my black neighborhood. The white activist calls her mother the B word to her face as she's burning down the neighborhood, and then makes fun of her tooth gap, which evidently is
it's a style thing within black women are known to press their teeth apart to make it look pretty.
Wow.
Gap, and to take that part of their culture.
I've been a witness against racial profiling in the federal courthouse. They're trying to burn down. Like, oh my God! It's like
this is April.
I don't have to write out a resume to be accepted, but I don't really want to be accepted by this radical faction. I don't support burning down the city and terrorizing people. I'm an environmentalist. I don't support arson in general.
And how many of the 2,000 protesters who showed up at the beginning of this 46 day event, how many of them support the 100 or so stragglers who are still out there every night screaming "F the police," Black Lives Matter, like it's some kind of a taunt, or they're hijacking a movement and weaponizing blackness.
Well, and to me, I sense a human sacrifice. Like Donovan LaBelle, a different Donovan, suffered this catastrophic head injury. Was it like 30 hours ago? And I feel like, shout out to his family. I'm so grievously sorry. It's so horrifying. We went down and saw the blood splatter, took pictures of it. It says revolution in red and then blood everywhere. And then they drug him and then he bled out more into the grass.
But he's still alive, thankfully. There's no confirmed death.
He had to have surgery on his skull fracture.
Facial reconstruction the night that it happened.
Oh my gosh. And this, with the Seattle casualty of the woman on the highway, I feel like they're putting innocent, vulnerable, optimistic people who may be misguided and making bad decisions about their own health and safety, but they're putting them in the forefront of the battle and letting them be slaughtered, just like the Vietnam officials sent men to be slaughtered in the Vietnam War and to commit war crimes in their name in the Vietnam War. And I've always been a pacifist.
And how effective is it to have your hands up in a gesture, almost like mocking the real, criminals who get shot by police, black, or even people within the black community who have been unarmed, who've gotten shot. It's really more of a mockery. But then to see him get shot with his hands up, I feel like it kind of defeats the purpose of doing a peaceful gesture when you're screaming and threatening police officers in the process.
Wow, that's interesting. I felt like when we're walking down there that basically this protest is the definition of white privilege. If you had a bunch of Islamic people doing this to the city, they would immediately be labeled terrorists. Mm-hmm. They would be up on federal charges. They would be apprehended. There would be mugshots everywhere. There would be newspapers. There would be years and years in prison. But this white affluent privilege to burn down the city and make it just this snarky joke and get a bunch of media on your side, basically whitewashing the extent of the damages in all the major media, other than maybe some of the news channels are a little more frank. But I don't think that's a good exercise of, like, I think in a way it's racist because, like, say, I don't know, I just don't think, I've seen over and over the black leaders within the movement are torn down. They're accused of working with the cops. Their military record is cited, or you hung out with the wrong branch of Antifa. That's what happened to Lilith. Despite her threats on you, she was excluded because she denounced sexism and sexual harassment and rape.
Huh.
Within
from Louise Marquez.
Yeah, and she was photographed with a different branch of Antifa that is now a heretical branch that doesn't fit with the mainstream Portland cult of Antifaism. I think it's like GLA or something else. It's some other Antifa faction. So, like, even within themselves, they're super. And one thing that's been obsessing me lately is if they're so against calling the cops, what are they doing when they assault their women or they assault each other? And their anti-cop motif, I think, is a cover for domestic violence.
Yeah, and if they're acting this violent out in public so openly, what are they doing in the confines and privacy of their own homes?
Yeah, exactly.
Probably way worse.
Right, and so, like, the Antifa on Antifa violence isn't really being discussed, but I'm pretty worried about it. I'm really worried about the women that are hanging out with these guys.
Well, last night they acted extremely hostile towards one of their own, I guess because he wasn't wearing a face mask at first. They started surrounding him, threatening him. They were shooting slingshots at the guy as he was sitting at the federal courthouse, like, peacefully with his cigarette. And I think the reason he wasn't wearing a mask at the time was because he was smoking a cigarette. But they just bombarded him and berated him and kicked him out of their event. It's like, okay, now this is bouncers at a club. You've got 30 people on one to eject one person.
Right. Like, proportionality. It's insane.
It's an intimidation factor. They want to be seen as an intimidating force among their own.
Which is why I talked about Mafia, because Econ Breakfast, I have never seen Econ Breakfast do anything violent other than home stalking you. Mm-hmm. He is more of a cyber harasser, but he is affiliated with militants that have threatened violence on you, like the Portland Youth Liberation Front.
I would say he even directed them to my house.
He directed them to your house for the murderous graffiti campaign, like threatening
and
death.
And that in itself is an act of violence, an act of war.
Right. So he tries to wash his hands, like Pontius Pilate, of the violence he incites and the terror he incites.
And what can I do? I can just make police reports upon police reports, and nothing gets done. But they've got the anonymous side where he can put me on a pedestal, claim that I'm some whatever criminal, liar, harasser. And then now his group of 2,000 plus people who are predominantly violent Antifas.
Some of whom are minors, too.
And they see this. They become enraged. They just want to be mad about something.
So you're going to be circled by piranhas wherever you go, even if you're going to your own grocery store. Like, you run into, like, Kill Farley or...
He's weaponizing the boredom youth culture. The angry, bored youth he has nothing to do.
And it's child abuse fundamentally, and it's abusive to your son.
Go after the real people who have persecuted others in this city.
And I think they're cowards. They're not.
Like I'm not saying go after the DA, but if you want to stay consistent with your belief system, don't go after a small fry like me who's just reporting the news.
A soft target. And I think it's because you're basically a sweet, good-natured, innocent hippie underneath your, gravelly persona.
Well, I consider everything.
You're not a threat to him.
I really am trying to figure out what's going on, and maybe I've said a few, inflammatory things along the way for shock value to get people to think about certain subjects in a new light. But that's within my freedom of speech. I don't think I've offended anybody outright.
Well, and you're not out there racially profiling. You're not locking people away on pretext stops or planting drugs on black people. You're not the enemy.
I'm only condemning the actions of this group of this criminal element in downtown that seems to be escalating, and they don't like that I have a stance against violence.
And that you're willing to attach your name to it, too, because that in a way is dangerous to them. You don't support their anonymized cult. They're too scared to show most...
Well, they've shown that they're an anti-peace movement by showing up to a peaceful Oregonian protest yesterday and then chasing two independent videographers into the Benson Hotel.
They were so intimidated by that Rihanna, the beautiful black woman
Great
speaking.
speaker.
She basically called them out for being disrespectful. They showed up with a sign that said, "Cops' lives don't matter."
Yeah, insinuating that it's okay to kill cops.
Right. And then they were blasting some kind of like little speaker megaphone. You couldn't hear it very well, but it was clear that the intent was to disrupt the black woman speaking.
But her voice overpowered them.
Yeah, and her reaction to the riots. They didn't want a black woman to criticize the riots they terrorized her neighborhood with.
That's right.
Broken glass.
I mean, that's her neighborhood. They probably live in Lake Oswego somewhere, or somewhere,
Yeah, right? Oh, I mean, McKelvey does. And okay, we were at the Holocaust Memorial in Washington Park the other day. Kristallnacht, the night of terror where there's smashing of glass, the breaking open of the windows, and this is after the demonization campaign. So we're currently undergoing this demonization campaign, and that's, in paper, it's words not really hurting me, trying not to feel too upset about it. But once the violence and the terror of the break-ins...
We see that they are a dangerous criminal faction and that they can cause massive amounts of damage. So they're not just kids playing pranks, pooping in bags and lighting them on fire and knocking on doors anymore. This is real serious. They're terrorizing people of color-owned businesses.
Right, like the Kassab jeweler family. And here was like a tangent, but say the Kassabs, who are from Lebanon, are from the persecuted Jewish minority in Lebanon, which when I worked in Beverly Hills, I became aware that there are a huge amount of Persian immigrants who are Jewish, who wear the Jewish star in America, trying to seek safety and prosperity. What if they're Jewish and they're experiencing smashed-in shops by this crazy, out-of-control, and they go into the newspaper, they're like, we support rights for everyone, we support black lives, we don't, we are people of color, you broke into our business. And I felt like there might be an added element of like fears of a neo-Nazi attack. Thank you for not attacking the synagogue. Thank you for not attacking.
They attacked a women's shelter for domestic abuse survivors, but no, they left the church alone at least. But at the beginning of these violent riots, they were just indiscriminately vandalizing businesses and nonprofits, and anything that was in their path is going to be part of their
cupcake shop I saw, it was wild. Yeah.
What is the cupcake shop done to you?
I don't know. They do charge a pretty heavy penny for their expensive gourmet cupcakes. It's yuppieism.
But they're just going after yuppie stores, like small businesses that maybe even had a hard time.
And then what did the KKK do? Arson. Arson is a KKK tactic of intimidation and terror. And then the environmental pollution going up into the jail and affecting a jail nurse. My mom worked at the MCDC as a jail nurse. She told me sometimes the guards are scarier than the prisoners because of their culture, and all of those people, employees, that they're nice people that work in there, that deserve quality air during the COVID lockdown scare. Oh my God, it's almost like a. Oh.
It's a form of torture.
Yeah, it is.
Them being there is causing the police to have to deploy these CS gas. Which is killing off the environment, it's killing the wildlife in the area, and it's asphyxiating the inmates in the Justice Center and the employees, the city employees who work here, which doesn't even include all police officers. There's janitors, there's people who scrub the the walls after they vandalized it. This is affecting the whole community,
Right.
not just the ones they're targeting.
Oh my gosh, I want to go clean up right now. Do you feel like going down there to clean up, maybe? Yeah, it was disgusting yesterday. We got so much, like a burning pepper. See, it was just, the toxic air is contained in the alcove at USDC. I was immediately worried about Judge Simon's breathing. He's not that old, but he's kind of pushing 60 at least. I wouldn't wish that on an elderly man. That would be elder abuse to force an elder to deal with smoke inhalation as a part of his job. They have a good air system there. They have multiple air systems actually for terrorist attacks. Actually, I read that on the wiki.
Oh.
Yeah, or I think it's for terrorist attack, or it's maybe
this
for
is a terrorist
fire. Yeah,
presence that's happening.
Yeah.
Outside the building.
I do feel frustrated with. I tried to put this in my little movie I made outside the courthouse when I tried to summarize all the cases, which I forgot the no-fly case for terrorist finance. That was very interesting, but tried to summarize how. What was I saying? I lost my thought.
We were talking about.
Yeah,
Whoa.
the U.S. District Courthouse and going in there. Well, like, I feel frustrated with the feds for not cracking down on the racial profiling that the Portland police were doing years ago. And when they came in and put their monitor on what we call, like, the consent decree is how it's typically called in other cities, the U.S. feds came into Portland and tried to kind of, like, get the Portland police to get on board with our civil rights, get on board with not persecuting people. But the DOJ basically sugarcoated their language, deracialized it, said, oh, you're persecuting people on basis of mental illness or perceived mental illness. And I straight up asked Jonas Geisler in 2013, why are you not talking about racial profiling or racism in the Portland police? Do you understand how serious this problem is? And I feel that the feds were very like tippy-toeing, like walking on eggshells, like we don't want to offend. And I think they could have done more when they came into the city to really lay it all down on the line. They paid millions of dollars to these fancy consultants from Chicago who were idiots, basically, like talked about strangling children and defending the domestic abuser who is currently police chief, Mike Marshman. And they really just like dropped the ball on so many issues. And it was so painful to see that because, okay, we can blame the kids. We can blame the Hales administration for just tamping down on citizen input. But I think we can also blame the feds in D.C. who did not exert enough oversight on this community when it was afflicted. We had our red flags. We were crying out for help. We were smothered. And then you have this uprising that I think the DOJ gets to take some of the blame for this national security fiasco. Is that enough? Oh my God.